Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. Today I have another project pen update for you, and it's gonna be about this Oden's Eye Alva II Mini Forest palette that I've been finally able to finish. So here you can see how she looks like. She's very beaten up. The entire inside packaging is falling apart. And yeah, here you can see the color story. It's completely finished. I didn't clean it up because since I'm not gonna be using it, there's really no point in trying to clean it. So this palette had 6 shades. 2 shades were kind of were in this bigger circle where they were separated. And in this video I'm gonna tell you everything about this palette, how much it costs, how many uses were in each shade, and all these kinds of things, so that you know all the statistics and stuff like that, and also kind of a review of this palette. I quite enjoyed this one when I received it. I think I received it last year when they had a Easter mystery box or something like that, and I was pretty excited because that was the first time that I've tried Oden's Eye, and since then I've been a huge fan of theirs. And this palette had 2 matte shades, one this kind of bluey minty shade, and one neutral brown shade. And then there was shimmery gold, shimmery kind of greeny shade that had gold speckles in it. Then this shade was a pinky neutral one. And then there was this shade called Shine, which was kind of the same shade as the mint, but it was a shimmer. So that's kind of the overall of this palette, and I've quite liked it for the time that I had it, but lately I've noticed that once you've hit pan on these, a lot of the shades became a lot more dusty, and it was a little bit more difficult to use them. They started to lose pigment, in my opinion, and every time you would dip a brush in any of these, you would get a lot of fallout, insane amounts of fallout, especially for the shade Shine, which was more drier and kind of just as if you would press glitter. So it was a very messy. And the shade Mint, the matte shade, also was very dusty. So I was able to create 154 looks with this palette, and overall I've used all of these shades 389 times. That's the total amount of uses for this palette, which is quite a lot considering that it's a very small palette. When it comes to using up the shades and hitting pan on them, I'm gonna start in the order that I've hit pan on them. So the first shade was the shade Greenery because it was my favorite shimmer shade. And this shade, I've hit pan on it while I was using it for the 18th time. Or there was 18th use of this shade. And overall, I've used this shade 33 times because first I would always use it all over my lid, so you know you use a lot of it, and because this pan was split, and as you can see there's no ridge in between them, they were kind of just pressed together next to each other. Once you would kind of hit pan and you were just trying to scrape the borders of it, a lot of the shadows would came out and fall out, and a lot of the times I would open the palette and a lot of the shadow would just fall out of the palette. So yeah, most of the shade ended up on the floor or on my desk. So that was kind of a problem. Then the next shade was the shade Shine, this one, and that was because it was very dusty once you started to kind of get closer to the pan. So I've hit pan on it after 20 uses. And overall I got 43 uses of this shade. Again, super dusty, a lot of it would fall out. And the next shade was this shade Breeze. Again, it was the split pen, so it kind of had a little bit less of a shadow than in the other palettes, and because of the structure of the pen, I think it would be better if they just had 6 of these pens instead of one kind of bigger like this. So the shade Breeze, it took me 19 uses to hit pen, and I've completely used it up after 28 uses, 29 uses. So this one, I don't know, this one didn't had as much pigment, so I had to build it up a lot more than the green one. That's why there's a little bit less uses in this one. Then the next shade was the shade Spirit First. It was this beautiful kind of goldy shade. In the beginning, I've used it only in my inner corner, and once I didn't have the middle shades, I've used it all over my lid. This one took me 27 uses to hit pan, and then completely finished by the 81st use. So this one kind of I think this shade held it up the best, because it wasn't as dusty and it was in this pan, which was just more ideal than the split pan. Then the next shade was the shade Little Deer, and I've hit pan after 34 uses. This one, it was pretty nice, like neutrally shade. It was kind of like a mid-tone color. I felt like I had to build it up a lot because it would always kind of blend out into nothing. And I usually want, if I'm gonna use neutrals, I at least want it to be a little bit more, you know, a little bit more something. I just want there to be some kind of depth. So you would have to build it up a lot, but it was really nice, smooth, creamy shade. It was very, very like comfortable to use and very soft to use. And so it took me 34 uses to hit pan, and then overall I got 105 uses. Once I started to scrape out the kind of the perimeters of the pen, or like the border, there was a lot of fallout, and I actually, a lot of the times you would dip the shadow, you would dip the brush in the shadow, and it would all kind of shatter. So once I was kind of just scraping the edges, it was really quick because a lot of it would fall out, and I'm not gonna repress it. Like once it hits the ground, I'm just not gonna try to put it back and repress it. So a lot of the shadow was wasted this way, but that's not my fault. Like the shadows should be a little bit more secure in the pan. And then the last shade that took me quite a while was the shade Mint. So this one was very, I don't know, it looked pretty pastely in the pan, but then once you put it on the eyes, it didn't really had a lot of pigment, and it was kind of very like dusty and kind of grayish, at least on me, and you had to build it up quite a lot. But also I would only use it in like inner corner or like in the inner third of my lid to kind of just soften up the look. So it took me 51 uses to hit pan on it, and then 98 uses to completely finish it, because once I hit the pan, it got even less pigmented, and I had to build it up like crazy to even get something out of it. So that's kind of all for this palette. As I said in the beginning, I quite like it. I've quite liked it, especially for like a springy color story. It was really pretty, and it was definitely a color story that I didn't really had before. But I find these Alva II mini palettes not that great, because I don't know, I just don't completely vibe with the color stories. I've had the mini Ocean, that one I gave away very quickly because I just didn't use it. And then there's like mini Sky, and I think that one is full of shimmers, and since I didn't really love those shimmers all that much, I love their newer formula, and I love their formula in the Norns collection. I have the mini Earth palette, and I love that one. So this one, not a bad color story, not a bad quality, but I just feel like if you have their newer palettes, this one's not gonna cut it. So yeah, but I'm happy that I've been able to finish it. So this palette has, as I said, 6 shades, and it has 5 grams of product. So one shade has approximately 0.83 grams, so less than a gram, which is pretty easy to pan and finish because I feel like most palettes are a gram or a gram and a half usually, and if you have bigger pans then it's like 2 grams of product, so 0.8 is very little, and you're gonna be able to pan it really quickly, especially since it's mostly shimmer palette, and shimmers always go faster than mattes. This palette is no longer available. Some of the smaller palettes are, but this one was discontinued, I believe. And but it costs, or it cost $20.90. 90 cents. So one shade, or like one shadow, cost approximately $3.48, and 1 gram of product costs $4.18, which isn't as bad. Oden's isn't like expensive brand, and their palettes are like pretty okay for the amount of product you get. And if you are interested in these mini palettes, I would recommend more the Verdandi, more the Norns collection. They had 3 palettes in that collection, and my favorite is the Earth palette. I've also had the Verdandi. I didn't really love that color story because it was more neutral, but the Earth is one of my favorites. It's kind of like if I needed a small palette to take it with me, this is always the one that I'm gonna go for because it's green. As you can see, it has some beautiful shades. I think I've used this one like 20 times, which is not that much, but I usually don't really go for small palettes. But if I'm traveling, this one is it. Or if I just want to have a quick eye look, this one is the one that I go for. And this shade almost has a pan already, so this one would definitely recommend. And I also love the colors, the cover page, or like the cover art, a little bit better from the Norns collection. So that's the kind of project pen update. I think this is the last project pen update for this year. I'm gonna film one more video in December, like at the end of the year, to kind of wrap up this series and also start a new series for the next year. So kind of like show you all the palettes that I've used up and the ones that were on my project pen and I didn't. But I think this is the last palette that I've been able to use up for this year because I only have 2 other palettes that I want to use up, and they're like really big. It was more of like a project pen for multiple years. So this year I was able to use up the Urban Decay Naked Cherry and the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette, and then this one. So I think that's enough of palettes used, especially considering that I have like 25 palettes at this point. So that's that. The other 2 palettes that are on my project pen are also from Oden's Eye, and it's the Christmas palettes from last year. So since they're not even a year old, obviously I'm not gonna be able to have them used up, and they're also bigger. So I'm just gonna show you how they look like nowadays. So this is the Merry Christmas palette, and this is how she looks like. So I have 2 pans visible, and then like these 2 shades are kind of used a lot. This one is used a lot. This black has been through a lot because I use it as eyeliner. And yeah, I definitely want to hit at least 2 more pans before the year ends, but that's about as much as I'm gonna be able to. And then the Christmas Eve palette. This is how she looks like. And I only have a pen on this multichrome. This is the shade Gorgeous, but these two yellows are like getting quite used up. They seem like they're gonna have a pen soon. And then also this shade called Snowflake seems also kind of you know, fighting for its life. So I think I'm gonna be able to hit another 2 pens before the year ends as well, and that would be absolutely wonderful. And I think I'm gonna be able to completely use up the multichromes because they're beautiful. So that's everything for this palette. I'm really happy that I was able to finish it. I've been trying to... I think I didn't have a single pan when this year started, so I was able to completely use this up within 8 months, which I feel like is quite an accomplishment. But as I say, it wasn't as complicated since it's small palette, and I didn't use it on its own. I always had to use other palettes with it because it's just the color story doesn't really make sense, and the other two mattes were like minty blue and a brown, and I don't like that combo all that much. I think I've only worn it like twice or 3 times. So yeah, I've always used it with other palettes, and I've tried to kind of sneak it in, and I think you could see that in my Get Ready With Me's, that this was one of the palettes that I would usually, you know, that I would touch once in a while and just use like a shade or two. And so you could kind of also see how these palettes went and how I was using them up, how this palette went and how I was using it up, because it was all in my daily Get Ready With Me's that I post on Instagram and stuff. But yeah, I think you can see that the palette was very well used, and I feel like she should be in like a witness protection program at this point. Like, she's been through a lot. I've actually took it with me on a couple like small vacations, you know, like just 3 or 4 day vacations, and it was pretty nice for that. You just take a color story that you like, and I would pair it with a bigger palette that had all the darker mattes and stuff like that, and it was very easy to take with you. So that's it for this palette. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any of these mini palettes, and let me know if any of the Oden's Eye palettes are on your project pan, or any other brand for that matter. I'm just kind of really curious how people go about their project pan, and let me know if you've finished any palette this year, because that would also be really interesting to see. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.